But it's similar, isn't it, Jasmine?
Strict enforcement. You can't touch somebody else's desk. Period.
And
then you can do it and then after a vote is done, if you feel like something went wrong, whatever the case may be, then you can do verification where we sit down like school children.
Right. And so one of the things, and they count and make sure that you were the person who pushed your button on your desk to say that day that you were present. And we had hoped that the Democrats that went back would at least do that, because then it would be a service to the public and a service to us. And, that would protect us from this kind of false saying, or we don't know, but saying there's a quorum when there may not have been.
Okay, that is so great. We heard so much great information. You girls are just wonderful. This is the reason why we voted you guys in, and this is why we support you as our progressive champions. Well, I think we have one question from our wonderful members. I'm not really sure if we have time.
2-minute warning.
Over to Kevin right quick.
You said 2 minutes?
We got 2 minutes, okay. Kevin, what question do you have?
So we had a verification question, but that was just answered. And so I think if we could go right into our last point of as we come into 2022, as we come into the future of for elections, for elections overall, what are some of, how do we keep winning? What are some of your suggestions to candidates, to organizers, and moving forward as a progressive movement, how we can keep winning?
For me, it's a matter of don't let people just tell you what they're about. They need a track record. They need a track record that you can actually look to and say, oh, this has been a champion on these types of things. That's number one. Also, we need to make sure we're holding everyone accountable. And so, Penny and I, we don't have an issue with accountability. We need to make sure that it's not just that they have a D in front of their name, but we look at how they're voting. We look at where they were with the quorum break. We ask them the hard questions, and we decide who we're going to support based on their actions, not based on a D being in front of their name.
I would say, because I know we're short on time, I'm going to say we have got to hope that the things that we think are going to happen starting next week don't happen. That's the first thing. But going forward, when we do voter registration drives, we need to multiply those, but we need to do voter registration / education drives now to make sure that our voters, even if it's just a mini course, they know what they're doing. They know how to make their vote count, right? Because this is all about not counting votes. And we just need to do that more and spread far and wide. There are groups who do that in certain neighborhoods. And I think we just need to mobilize that more so that because we had record turnouts in 2020. It was the most that had happened in 30 years. And we want to continue to see that trend. And we're going to need to see that and more because of the possibility that votes will be knocked off for various reasons now.
All right. Well, thank you so,
Representative Tanisha.
I just wanted to say that even though they're in Washington, I just want to let you know these representatives are still working in Houston. I follow them both on Facebook. Both of them are doing school drives for the kids. They're giving you information about what's going on in your city streets. And so much, I'm just overwhelmed when I look. So thank you so much, ladies. I love you. I'm going to fight for you as much as we can in Houston. Don't think that we've forgotten about you. We have so many organizations that are getting together and we're holding the flag for you guys. Believe me, we love you and keep doing what you're doing. We got you here. We got you.
Thank you, Our Revolution. We will be at the rally in DC on the 28th. So look out for that with the Poor People's Campaign, the pastors, the faith leaders. We'll be there for voting rights. So look out for us. Okay. Thank you all.
Awesome. For everyone here, we have an exciting show still planned with lots of amazing speakers. At 1 p.m., at 12 p.m., we're going to have How to Run for Office. Like said earlier, we have awesome speakers, Councilmember Junior Izanu, Harris County Christian Menifee, and then also congressional candidate Jessica Cisneros will be on, as well as other that are amazing you'll be able to hear. And then at 1 p.m., we're going to be talking about how to transform the party. We're going to have an awesome panel there. At 2 p.m., we're going to have an awesome panel as well, including council member in San Antonio, Terry Castillo, and others. And lastly, we're going to have our 3 p.m. business. So bring some friends, get them on if they weren't able to.
Invite people. And guess what? You'll see Kevin and I again. We're kind of popping in, popping out. We're kind of your entertainment team. I'm bringing the fire. Today, it is the Texas Progressive Convention, and we are here. Let's celebrate.
Awesome. And yeah, I will pass it to Scott and Diana for the next portion.
Which will be at 12 o'clock. So we're going to have a brief interlude. You guys can grab a sandwich, a drink, take a bathroom break, which is what I'm about to do, and come back for another great panel at 12 on how to run for office as a progressive. Thanks for the great musical background, Latanya. So, welcome everybody to our next panel. This is How to Run for Office as a Progressive. I am Scott Fuglis, and I ran for office myself last year for Drainage District Commissioner. Lost by 350 votes out of 70,000, so I know what it's what it's like to lose a squeaker of an election. But I learned a lot, and I helped out a lot of other candidates. And I'm also the state rep for Our Revolution Gulf Coast. And Diana, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Scott. My name's Diana Slay, she, her pronouns. I'm from Arlington, Texas. Like Scott, I ran last cycle for Arlington City Council. Was fortunate to win in the general, but we went to a runoff where unfortunately the outcome was not in my favor. But still excited to co-host this panel with Scott alongside these amazing progressives to learn more about how to run a progressive campaign. So thank you all for joining us.
So without any further ado, we have an awesome panel. We have Christian Menifee, Harris County Attorney. We have Junior Ezianu, I hope I didn't murder that, Grand Prairie City Councilman. We have Veronica Carvajal, former candidate for El Paso Mayor. And we have Jessica Cisneros, former candidate for Congress in TX28. So we're going to give you guys each 1 to 2 minutes to just do a quick introduction. Tell us what you've been up to, because it's very interesting. Christian?
Thank you very much, Scott. And I must say that the Our Revolution conference is the only time that you're going to lead into your panel with some Prince playing in the background. So it's one of the great things that I love about this group. But I'm Christian Menifee. I was elected Harris County Attorney in November of 2020 with the support of Our Revolution Harris County and the Texas folks. I'm extremely grateful for that. County Attorney is not what it sounds like. When I was on the campaign trail, I most often had to explain to folks that I was not running to be the district attorney. So there's no criminal prosecutorial authority in this position. Instead, I'm one of 7 lawyers in the state of Texas who does only the civil work for the county. So that means that whenever Commissioner's Court and Judge Hidalgo are trying to come up with policies that save lives and help people during the pandemic, we do the entire legal analysis for it. We are the lawyers for the more than 60 elected officials at the county level in Harris County. We represent the county in all lawsuits, which has been the source of much fun over the past few months. And so, yeah, it's been a great group so far, working with some great people at the county, and some of the big picture stuff that we've been involved in. We were one of the first local governmental agencies to initiate an investigation into ERCOT during the winter storm. We launched a price gouging initiative during the winter storm that ended up being mirrored by counties throughout the state of Texas. So that was really amazing. We have sued TxDOT for its plans with the I-45 project, which many of you know is the expansion of a highway into Black and brown and underserved neighborhoods here in the Houston area. We have sued Juul for their deceptive marketing of their e-cigarette products to minors. And most recently, we've sued Governor Abbott and Attorney General Paxton for the governor's prohibition on mask mandates, which has been an incredibly exciting thing over the past couple of weeks. But it's been very fast-paced, but I can't tell you the number of folks who have reached out across the state, parents of students, students themselves, who have just been grateful for the work that the county is doing there. So it's been great to kind of fight on all these fights, and I look forward to this conversation today.
Oops, I was stuck on mute. That's awesome, Christian. Thank you. Junior, can you give us a quick intro?
Most definitely. Well, first and foremost, I would love to just thank Our Revolution for setting up this convention, as well as supporting me throughout my race. My name is Junior Ezianu. I'm a newly elected city council member in the great city of Grand Prairie, Texas, a suburb of 200,000 residents right outside of Dallas, about 10 to 15 minutes away, west of Dallas. I'm very blessed to be in this position. I'm the first African-American to be elected to the city council in Grand Prairie history since the early 90s. First one to be elected, I think, at large in Grand Prairie history, as well as in my campaign, it was very interesting. I am the youngest elected in Grand Prairie history. I'm 22 years old of age. At 22 years of age, 22 years, I don't know. I'm 22 years old. Oh my goodness. But yeah, the great thing about my campaign is that we ran against a conservative Republican incumbent that had been in office for 12 years. He had been in office since 2009 and was really the heir apparent to the current mayor. He was supposed to be the next mayor. We ran against a lot of big money interests, a lot of realtors and developers that funded his campaign. We ran on just people power. We really turned out a community that doesn't really get engaged when it comes to municipal politics, municipal elections. And I spoke to them and tried to encourage people to get involved because these elections, these races, these offices hold the most direct impact to your day-to-day lives. It's not your United States representatives or your senators that come first when it comes to your day-to-day issues in your neighborhoods and your communities. You got to contact your city council member. You got to contact your mayor. Those on that local level can have the most direct impact on your life. And I've been very blessed to make an impact in these last 2 months that I've been in office. And I'm just glad to be here. OR in my race tremendously supported me, helped me out with a lot of block walks, a lot of phone banking and text banking. So I was very appreciative towards progressives supporting other progressives. My friend Diana Saleh is on this call as well, and she supported me like crazy. And I look forward to supporting her when she runs again. I know she will run again. And we'll have another progressive across the 360 corridor here in the DFW Metroplex area. So yeah, I'm just glad to be here. I'm glad to be around a lot of progressives that are doing great things in the state of Texas. I look forward to seeing what else we can do to move this state in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Veronica.
Hello, everyone. It's still morning in El Paso. I am Veronica Carvajal. El Paso is on the border, some of you may know. I ran for mayor last year. It was the first time the mayoral election was held in November, so it was challenging for different reasons. Historically, we've had very low turnout. El Paso has been a majority Mexican-American, Latinx community since its foundation 150 years ago, but we've never had a woman, Latina, as a mayor. We've had one woman, but she was not a Latina. So we really thought we could make history, and we did really well. There were 6 candidates. I was the only woman. I was the only one running a truly grassroots campaign. I came out saying, I'm not going to take dirty money. I'm not going to take funny money. And we still managed to raise almost $100,000, which we thought was huge for us. I was up against a former mayor who's also a car dealer owner. So he's on TV multiple times a day, every day. And then the incumbent mayor, who's a Republican. It's a nonpartisan election. I came in third. I missed the runoff by 6,000 votes. I got almost 48,000 votes, which we all thought was just incredible. Of course, we wanted to win, but the changes that we made and the kinds of conversations that we were able to open up, I think really have changed the way that even the other politicians are running their campaigns and the way that they're talking about the issues. So I'm really excited about being a part of this. Just some background, I am a lawyer at Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. So I've taken on impact litigation and environmental issues in real estate scam issues, landlord tenant, fair housing, etc. So I brought, I think, a lot of insight from my colleagues and myself, but I still learned a ton about local issues during the race. And I hope that all of us remember that our conversations and our messaging should always be grounded on local issues, even if you're running for federal office. As a federal representative, you are still the steward of federal funding and how it's disposed of at the local level. And that's something that I during COVID, because there was such a favoritism, as always, towards the oligarchs in our community, which we see over and over, right? The public-private partnerships almost always hurt the public and really help the private sector. And so thank you for inviting me, and I'm excited to learn from everyone else on the panel.
Thank you, Veronica. Jessica, I should have said former and current candidate, right?
That is right. I'll talk a little bit about what we did last time, but if you haven't heard, we did just relaunch our campaign in a rematch against Henry Fayad here in Texas 28 a couple of weeks ago. So that's been an exciting update to have. But my name is Jessica Cisneros. I use the pronouns she, her, and ella. I ran for Congress in Texas 28, the same district. For those of y'all who might be unfamiliar, so I'm from Laredo, Texas. Our district runs from San Antonio all the way down to Laredo, then all the way down to the Rio Grande Valley. It's one of those beautifully gerrymandered districts we have down here on the border. I'm an immigration and human rights attorney. That's the work I've been doing, and the work that I did even before running for Congress the first time. And I ran against Henry Cuellar, who, as many of y'all might know him as Trump's favorite Democrat, which was a moniker that was given to him based off of his track record, during the previous administration, and continues to be like the only anti-choice Democrat in Congress, taking a bunch of money from Big Oil and the Koch brothers and all the bad guys you can think of. But the challenging thing with our race was that I was going up against a 15-year incumbent, somebody who had been entrenched in local politics and Laredo politics since even before I was born, and somebody who has a war chest fueled by all these corporate interests. And here I was, a 26-year-old first-time candidate, running, who doesn't come from a wealthy family or like counts on a very extensive, powerful network or a wealthy network. My parents started off as farm workers. My dad's a truck driver now. My mom's a stay-at-home mom. So I didn't really, count on a lot of personal wealth that I can bring into the race. But thanks to the people power that powered our campaign, we're able to raise over $2 million during our race with like an average contribution of, I think, $28, I think. We got endorsements from, I don't know if you might, know them, Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Elizabeth Warren, Julian Castro. Like, there were so many people that got behind our race. And I think the most touching thing for me was to see that it was a product of the people power that had been organizing on the ground. An area that had been so forgotten for a very long time, all of a sudden getting national attention, finding national partners to take a look at what's happening and the local efforts that are happening here. I think that for me was like the most beautiful and touching thing of organizing during our race last time. And I just give all the credit to like everybody who volunteered and worked on the campaign and donated, the few couple of dollars chipped in, and like it really added up at the end. And we ended up coming very close to winning. We held Cuellar to 51.8% of the vote, which is incredible. We got 48.2% of the vote. We're just about 2,800 votes away from winning. And I think that just really shocked, folks here locally. And I think also at the national level, like, oh, we should take a closer look at what's happening on these border communities, which I think is the most important takeaway from our race. But because we did come so close, we're honoring all the hard work that everybody put in last time and making sure that we fine tune, all those details. Running for office, anybody can tell you there's a huge learning curve that first time, but once you kind of, do that the first time, you already know what you're doing, your team knows what you're doing, your volunteers know what you're doing. The first part was just, the first part was the hard part, right? Like figuring out how to run an effective campaign, but something that I always pride myself in terms of our campaign is that you can never go wrong when you have a true ear to the ground and you're out there knocking on doors and talking to voters and getting the feedback directly from them. So after the first run, I went back to my work. I also worked at Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid for the better half of last year. And then right now I'm a supervising attorney at Raíces, doing detention work here on the border. So that's my day job. At night, I am a congressional candidate, at least for the next few weeks, until I can finally transition into focusing full-time on a campaign, because it is a full-time job. But it's really exciting to, have that outpour of support that we've, had since the last time we ran. So I'll leave it in that. And I'm really excited to, get to talk to everybody, share some tips and tricks. I think this is going to be a great learning experience for everybody. And again, thank you so much to Our Revolution Texas for inviting me.
That's amazing. Between all of our amazing panelists, there's no shortage of knowledge, and it's very inspiring to hear and see how far you've all come with your grassroots campaigns. But before we get into the questions, I see Junior, would you like to add anything before we jump right in?
Yeah, I'll be very brief. I just wanted to state, and this was in regards to Jessica. Last fall, I was doing an internship in Washington, D.C. with a program called the Archer Fellowship Center, and they send students through the UT system to Washington to intern. And one of our guest speakers that we had was the lovely Miss Jessica Cisneros. And she spoke to us, Archer Fellows. Majority of us are progressive leaning individuals, some are conservatives, right? But everybody tuned in to listen to her speak because of her story and the fact that she's also an Archer Fellow alumni. And I will tell you this, she spoke to us probably in October and November. I came back to Texas in mid-December, started running my campaign in early February. She's one of the people that inspired me. Looking at her campaign, looking at how much money she tried to raise against a big money conservative Democratic incumbent, and seeing how close she got inspired me to get involved, inspired me to run while I was still in college. I just graduated in May. So I just wanted to thank her and applaud her for her hard work and her dedication to the progressive movement and progressive cause, just looking out for working class, everyday people like ourselves. And just, I want her to know that she's an inspiration, and I look forward to supporting her in her campaign. And I know she's going to bring it home in 2022. And I just want us to all come together and support her because she's one of the people that inspired me to get to where I am today. I look forward to inspiring others and just working behind her to get to where we need to get to. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I'm gonna keep myself muted before I start crying. Thank you so much. That's so awesome, and that's inspiring in turn. I think this is just inspiring all around for everyone.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much. We'll jump right in. Our first question, of course, we would love to know, it's Texas, and depending on where you're running in Texas, there may be either a negative connotation associated with being a progressive, or you find yourself in a space where it's completely accepted. So we just want to know, again, given that you all have a wealth of experience and you come from different parts of the state, how openly progressive were you, or do you encourage folks that are running for office to be, and did you have to tailor your message for different audiences? And Veronica, we can start with you.
Thank you so much. So I think I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I'll talk about Black Lives Matter in El Paso and the Blue Lives Matter issue, right? So El Paso is, like I said, majority Latinx. However, we're a border community. So Jessica, you probably can relate. We have a lot of our people, brown and Black folks who are in law enforcement, all kinds of law enforcement. We also have a military base, Fort Bliss. And so I had to really think about, do I thread that needle? How do I do that, right? But ultimately, it came down to, I need to go to the protest. Like, I just, as a personal, it's a part of who I've been since I was an activist in college at Brown. I need to be there, and I need to be around my people and feel that the world isn't falling apart and there's still hope. My presence at the protest had two really important outcomes. One, that people saw me as someone who was genuine. So we got volunteers that were just 100% for us. And two, I was a witness to excessive use of force by the police. And it wasn't the first time. We had seen this with another case that I'm working on that the work actually has his hands in. So there's issues there in my politics with him. But we had seen it with the community that we're trying to defend and keep from being demolished in Duranguito, the police using excessive force. And so I was able to comment at city council the following days and say, this is my history with the department, here's the problems that we have, etc. What was also happening was a really important case was going through the federal courts, and a very conservative judge who has since passed away, Philip Martinez, issued a decision that had a scathing opinion about the use of force against people with mental health issues. And so I brought it all home for people, right? I talked to the attorneys, I talked to advocates. We put out a platform statement that was very clear about, this is wrong and we need to really reprioritize what we're doing. And it was grounded on local issues. It was grounded on, this is happening, here's how much of our budget is going to fund things that are being used against us. And that, I had to really fight my policy team, because many of them are saying, you are going to lose people. This is not the community to do it in. People just voted. We had just voted on a bond that passed it was I think $500 million bond for the department a year before. So it was wait, voters want to help the police, right? They're understaffed. They're the victim. They don't have enough resources. And here you are attacking them. And I was I'm going to not attack them. I'm going to expose them. And we were very methodical about the way that we talked about that. And I also had to pull back on responding to trolls, so that I didn't lose a lot of time with that and really focused on the issues, and working with people with disabilities and really expanding the conversation, I think really helped us. And so I was very clear with my team. I'm not going to stay away from those issues, but I will expose them in a way that I to give credence to the complaints that people have, which are very legitimate. And it takes a lot of courage. It also takes a lot of strategy. And as I learned that, right, I can't show up to court with only a story. I have to have my exhibits. I have to have my witnesses. I have to have back. And if we do that consistently with all of our issues, I firmly believe that we can get people to see what's really wrong with the way that things are being run, and to want to change what really comes down to a lot of injustice. And so that's my take on that one issue. I could talk about a lot of other issues that we got into, but that one that I did not want to shy away from, and I'm glad that I didn't.
Absolutely. It's incredibly important to stand for what you believe in unapologetically sometimes. And that's why we love our progressive candidates who do that over and over and put so much on the line in order to do so. Christian, we'll turn it over to you. What was your experience? How openly progressive were you, or did you have to tailor any of your messaging?
So I ran in a primary against a Democratic incumbent, and I ran to his left. But what I was most surprised about was the issue that I thought was going to be the most important to voters, which was bail reform, wasn't even in voters' top 5 set of issues when we did the polling on it. So I very much had the benefit of running against a not very well-known incumbent, and so I could kind of craft whatever story I wanted to about myself, and I didn't have to worry as much about going negative on him. So that allowed me to just focus on the issues that I cared about. And I tried to be thoughtful in it because, for those of you who don't know, Harris County, which is where Houston is, in presidential cycles, we've been blue every cycle since 2008, although in 2012 we lost a few seats. In midterm cycles, we've only had one full year of being blue. So it's a weird electorate where Democrats kind of control the county, but things could topple back over in a midterm year anytime. But I ran in a presidential year. So we did initial polling, and my approach has always been, you have this position that you're running for, right? And there are certain things that you can impact from this position. And then there's a bunch of other stuff that you might care about, but you really can't impact from this position. Those things that you care about may be very polarizing things politically. And so if I had different buckets, the bucket of the things that are polarizing politically that I cannot impact, I just didn't talk about, because to me, the risk reward analysis was just not great at all, because I knew that talking about them wasn't going to make much of a difference, because even when I get in office, I won't be able to do anything about it. I think the calculus is different if you're running for a position like Congress, like Jessica is, because you have enough in your bailiwick to where you can pretty much impact any issue. But for the local positions, there's a limited set of issues that you can impact. There's stuff that you kind of have a bully pulpit for, and then there's stuff that there's just no way you can do anything about it. So we focus very much on voting rights. This was like before the whole kind of quorum busting thing. It was very early about, the Republicans were kind of starting their initial stages of attacking local elections and the results of local elections. And so I very much focused on us being an advocate for the county as the Republican-controlled legislator and Attorney General's office and Governor's Mansion took steps to kind of combat what we're doing here locally. I talked about law enforcement reform only largely because I'm just, something I've always been passionate about. Like when Alton Sterling was murdered by police, I left the firm that I was at and got on the road and went straight to Baton Rouge to go participate in the protest that was going on. But I talked about it in a way that was kind of like more personal to me and less, and I talked about major policy shifts, but I didn't kind of tie it to what I would do in this position, because I knew that in this position, one, I wasn't going to be able to change policy in that way. And two, many of our clients in this office are law enforcement. And so I kind of had to be thoughtful in my approach there. But yeah, it was very much placing the issues in different buckets, right? The bucket that you cannot impact and it's extremely polarizing. The bucket that is polarizing, but you can't impact it. So we definitely talk about that. and then the bucket that is not polarizing and you can't impact it, and we would definitely talk about that. But it was mainly about ensuring that when I communicated my message, I didn't soften what I was saying, but I said it in a way to where people would not misunderstand what I'm saying, right? And so I think that at times, especially in like local campaigns, we tend to not be as thoughtful as maybe Jessica would be in her campaign. And folks just say stuff and they just assume that everybody's going to hear it the way that they're saying it. And so we tried to be very thoughtful about saying what we're saying, not running from our message, but saying it in a way that's going to be palatable to people, because ultimately, the goal ultimately is to change things, right? And you can't change things if you're not talking about them. You can't change things if you're not winning your race. And so, we were very thoughtful to try to like plant these seeds. Like, hey, when I get in, for example, hey, I'm not supportive of qualified immunity, and here's why. I'm not opposed to any form of some type of immunity, but qualified immunity just goes way too far in explaining that. And since then, we've been able to kind of, change things around the margin on that. So, that's, I guess, the 50,000 foot view of it was being thoughtful in our message, not running from our message, but saying it in a way to where people would not confuse our message.
Absolutely. I think you raised some incredible points, especially as prioritizing the issues and prioritizing your messaging. I think just naturally, the individuals that run for office are very passionate. And so it can be really easy to want to, fight for everything, and then have one perspective of what you think the issues are. But then when you go out and you speak to voters and you speak to your constituents and the residents, and you quickly realize that what's important to you may not be as important to them, or they have other issues on their mind. So really getting to the root of that and understanding, because it can be very easy to run after all different things instead of staying focused. But thank you for that perspective, Christian. Junior, we can jump to you.
Could you restate the entire question just so I have everything?
Yes, absolutely. So we've wanted to know, how progressive were you during the campaign? How progressive do you think candidates running should be? And if you had to tailor any of your messaging?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. I just wanted to make sure I had the entire thing. So in my campaign, if you go on my campaign website, I still haven't updated it yet. I have that I'm a progressive candidate that believes in meeting people where they are. I have it on my website, I have it in blue, progressive here, progressive there. I was actually attacked by the Republicans for being progressive. They called me a radical socialist Marxist that wants to ruin Grand Prairie and all that good stuff that they say about us. But in my city, in Grand Prairie, we do have a sizable amount of Democrats, right? So about 60% of the city voted for Biden, 40% voted for Trump. And within that 60%, we have a sizable amount of moderates. And during my campaign, it was really interesting being able to speak to these moderates and helping move them to a more progressive direction, having them vote for a progressive elected progressive candidate. Because I would have many conversations with moderate voters that said that they weren't so sure if they were that they wanted to support me because my title. And I would ask them questions regarding certain policies. They'll check mark it. They'll agree with me on that. So I'm asking, are you sure you're not a progressive because you're not a progressive, or because of what the media makes progressives look out to be? And that's a big thing for us, is whenever we're in our neighborhoods, whenever we're speaking to voters, we have to kind of break it down into ways that they can understand it. Shape your messaging to fit your constituency. And that doesn't mean that you're watering down your ideology and your message and your vision, but rather you're speaking in ways that people can understand. So when we talk about equity, we're talking about just giving everybody a fair opportunity to be successful. We're not saying that everybody's eventually going to have the same job, we're going to live the same kind of life. No, we're saying let's give everybody that same opportunity to live a middle-class lifestyle, to make it into the middle class, to have enough money to feed their kids, to have enough money to send their kids to college. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about equity. But people take it the wrong way sometimes because of the preconceived notions that they see on social media. And being able to message understanding your community is really important. I remember one time I was doing a panel with the Chamber of Commerce for the election, and I was getting attacked by being supported by Our Revolution, Sunrise Movement, Texas Working Families, and they were attacking me for being endorsed by them. And I said, The progressive group support a progressive candidate because I care about regular, everyday people. I care about improving the lives of working class people. My opponent is worried about helping his developer buddies, helping his realtor buddies. I care about helping the day-to-day people in Grand Prairie that are underserved because we put our money only in certain parts of the town, not others. So when we speak in these ways and allow people to see that when progressivism isn't some radical, crazy idea, rather it's helping everyone, giving everyone that same opportunity that the wealthy have, redistributing the wealth so people have an opportunity to be successful. So there, and I mean, if we look at right now, a great example is if we look at the issue with Afghanistan, we spent six trillion dollars. We're gonna end up spending about $6.4 trillion in a fruitless war where we killed a lot of civilians and did a lot of harm to that nation. Rather, if we took that money and put it back into our country and invested in it and allowed youth to go to college for free, have free tuition for public education, invested into Medicare for all, so everybody's covered. We don't have to deal with 45,000 Americans dying every year as a result of not having health insurance, not being able to go get preventative checks at the doctor. But we just have to speak in these ways that people can understand and relate to their day-to-day lives. And whenever we do this, more and more people move to the progressive side. And when you look at polling, 60% of the country supports Medicare for all whenever you just say the government, whenever you say it in a different form, not call it Medicare for all because it's polarized. 60% of the country supports I think 70% supports the $15 minimum wage. The nation is there. Texas is there. Our districts are there. The issue is how do we message? How do we connect these points? How do we connect the dots for voters that have been misled by social media misinformation and misled Fox News and the corporate media, whether it's CNN, MSNBC, that makes it seem like progressives are thinking in outlandish forms. The progressive position is really the moderate position, if you're being honest. The progressive position is really the position that the majority of Americans identify with. The issue is we haven't been able to connect with them on that. But I believe that people like us that are in this call, they're on this panel, we're those leaders that can help move us in that direction, help connect the dots for regular, everyday Americans that don't watch the news 24/7. They only hear sound bites. That's what I did with my election. That's how I was able to defeat this incumbent that had a lot more advantages than I.
Absolutely. And as someone that, we ran in the same cycle and we became good friends, I can speak to how much and how severe the attacks were on you for being young, for being progressive, for being associated with, all these amazing groups that do incredible work. But, unfortunately, those that don't understand what that work is or don't understand the heart and soul behind it can use that as a disadvantage. But you definitely rose above that, and I know we could talk about that forever. But Jessica, as a congressional candidate, would love to hear from you about your progressive strategy. I know as on the national stage, the issues that you are fighting for, especially from a progressive perspective, can often get misconstrued, or there could be a lot of noise around all of the things that you're trying to achieve. So how are you handling that in this campaign?
I think, well, first off, when we ran a unabashedly progressive campaign, but like at the same time, you have to recognize that at the doors, like people aren't necessarily voting for me because I am a progressive. They're voting for me because they agree with the platform that we're running on, right? The same thing, I mean, personally, and I hope everybody on this call, right? Like we don't support ideas just because they have the label progressive, but because they're common sense to us, right? Like those are the reasons why we support them, because we feel that these policies will have a real tangible change in our lives and the lives of people that we love in our communities. So when we're at the doors, it's not, it's like Junior said, like it's really talking about how these policies translate into an effect on the person's day to day. Because we can have this whole theoretical conversation about why single payer healthcare system is going to be, the best policy choice for America as a whole. If I speak about that at the door, people will be like, okay, that's great. Like, how do I put food on the table? How do I take care of my kids? And I think I saw Mia, who's from the Rio Grande Valley, post something about chicken plates on there. So the reason why that usually comes up when we're talking about Medicare for all is because right now, since healthcare is being rationed by who can afford it, people have to do, like, it's mutual aid, right? You do fundraisers for friends and family. And like you said here, it translates to us selling plates of food on the side of the highway to try to raise the funds to be able to pay for medical expenses, right? So telling people, like, if we have Medicare for all, if we have a single payer healthcare system, we don't have to do those things anymore, right? Like, I remember doing it when I was like 13 years old, and my tia, who passed away because we couldn't afford her cancer treatment, like, I remember us trying to like figure out how we are going to pay for it. And I was like 13, like, I shouldn't have to be worrying about these things, and nobody at whatever age should have to be worrying about these things. Here on the border, it also translates to us having to go into Mexico to go get, healthcare. So like telling people, like, we won't have to do that anymore. And right now, like, you still are paying your insurance company money. And then when it comes to you wanting to use your insurance, it's like a nightmare to try to use your insurance, right? Like, you keep paying, and can't even use it, right? So it's things like that, those common frustrations that you can pull on, that people are like, you know what, you're right. Like, I do agree with your policy. But again, it's not necessarily that they're agreeing to it because it's labeled as progressive, but it's more so because it's just common sense. So I think that's the way that you have to like tailor the message, those very unique experiences in your part of the country, that I think would be the most effective messaging. But obviously not, like everybody said, not watering it down, because the whole purpose of you running hopefully will be because you actually want to advance the issues, not necessarily just get to a position. Because we've seen that even when you do come up short, but you're staying, clear-eyed and staying focused on the policy and what effects it's going to have on your community, you still cause a ripple effect, right? There's people that you're inspiring that are watching you and go out there and do the thing. So I think that we just need to be very focused on the policy, but really, I guess here it's really effective to go into storytelling. So just figuring out what works, I think is the best way to be able to, what I call translating the policies to the local level.
That is awesome. Thank you. As a former candidate, I'm learning so much from you guys. So we're going to go into our next question, which is this, and I think every candidate is facing this, particularly on the left, and that is, how do you tailor your campaign in the age of COVID? I know we are expected as progressives or even as Democrats to watch out for public health because that's a priority of ours. But on the other hand, that can hamstring a campaign. So, Junior, let's start with you. What do you think about tailoring your campaign in the age of COVID?
Yeah, for my campaign, so I ran from February to June. It was a lot of wearing masks, a lot of hand sanitizing, and avoiding voters. But when we knock on the doors, we're standing about 10 feet away from the door. So I would host virtual town halls, so I didn't have to go and do it in person. We'd do it on Zoom. We won't have to always be in person during this time. And this is prior to people having access to getting the vaccine. So what I would recommend for progressive candidates, because it seems like COVID is going away anytime soon as a result of a lot of people not being vaccinated, and those that aren't vaccinated are wearing masks, causing us that are vaccinated to wear a mask again, is that when you're knocking on doors, ain't nothing wrong with knocking on doors. Press that door, ring that doorbell, step 10 feet away. Don't step 6 feet away, step 10 feet away. Allow those voters to just comfortable come out, speak to you. Make sure you're wearing a mask 24/7 as you're knocking on these doors, because it's not just a matter of protecting yourself, protecting the voter. You're also showing respect. You're showing deference to the voter, that you want to keep them safe. Although you want to win your election, you want to represent this constituency. The first way to show that is in your respect for yourself and for that individual by wearing that mask. And yes, it is kind of hot. I won't lie to you. Wearing a mask in the summer's heat while you're knocking on doors is difficult because of the heat, but it's worth it because people see that you're out there and you're genuine in your belief to improve the lives of others. So that's the first thing I would say. Wear a mask, and also hand sanitize a lot. If you got volunteers, offer them the opportunity to wear gloves. If they want to wear gloves, they can wear gloves, and wear a mask as well. Have a lot of virtual town halls. As you're campaigning, offer people the opportunity to speak to you on Zoom. Some people aren't comfortable to come out into large halls and speak in public, in person. So if you're living in an area where people are more apprehensive with that, consider Instagram Live. This is another thing I wish I would have implemented more in my campaign, because that's another way to directly speak to people. Instagram Live and Facebook Live, especially when you have older electorate. Facebook Live is a very accessible way to speak to people on a regular basis. So like Kevin is the king of IG. I'm reading the comment section over here, but yes, for sure, Instagram Live, Zoom town halls, making sure that you're wearing a mask in public when you're knocking on those doors. Wear a mask, use hand sanitizer, offer that to your volunteers, and just try to be as safe as you can. It is difficult because COVID is something that is novel. We've never seen this before. We can all overcome it by just taking care of ourselves, taking care of those that are around us, taking care of those that are supporting us, and showing the community that we genuinely care by following those public safety recommendations by the CDC.
Great. Jessica, back to you.
So our campaign, the primary was March 3rd. Literally like 10 days after the campaign ended was when COVID started to becoming a concern here in Texas. So I'm actually here to learn from y'all as to how you organize through that. But I do have a little bit of experience because we did have this campaign infrastructure that had been absent from South Texas in terms of like for federal races, like grassroots support for federal races. For decades, and because we did have this new infrastructure, we used it for getting out the vote for the general election. So it was just a lot of phone banks, a lot of text messaging, a lot of virtual stuff, as Junior mentioned, because at that time South Texas was a COVID hotspot, so a lot of us did not feel comfortable going and knocking on doors, also because we are very uninsured in this area, and like it was just it wasn't safe environment for anybody to go out there knocking on doors. We did do literature drops if you needed to get stuff in front of voters, but those are like the tactics that we pretty much used. And I think if anything, the silver lining of this pandemic is trying to find creative ways to really engage with voters outside of the traditional door knocking, which is probably the best, but it's probably a good just exercise to try to explore what else we can do and be effective at organizing.
Outstanding. Christian, campaigning major COVID.
So yes, similar to Jessica's story, my race in Harris County, because it was a presidential cycle, was really the primary. And so we worked super duper hard to get over the hump in the primary. Of course, a couple of weeks later, the pandemic breaks out and everything goes into quarantine. I continued campaigning through the general, but it was different because the campaign then was less about me and more about convincing everyone to vote for all of the Democratic folks on the ticket. And that was much of what has already been discussed, which is virtual events, doing Zoom events and other forms of kind of remote engagement. It has been particularly hard for me. I'm a pretty big extrovert, and I feel like I have my best reps when I'm in front of people and able to engage them and learn more about who they are and tell them more about who I am kind of on a face-to-face basis. So it's been particularly difficult. It was particularly difficult for me in those last few months. But that said, we did kind of the standard stuff. We did text messaging, we did mail, we did robocalls, we did social media engagement, and we did Zoom events.
Excellent. Thank you. Veronica, it looks like we're almost out of time. We got a few more minutes, so this will probably be our last question.
I'll hit the highlights. So mine was not election. So we didn't do a lot of block walking. We did like small gatherings before the pandemic hit. Because I didn't want voters to be confused, like they weren't going to see me in March on the ballot, right? And then the pandemic hit, and we're like, oh Lord, what do we do? And I am not a social media person, right? I have a hard time with doing selfies, showing people everything I do every day. I had to really work on that. But we got masks that had like the campaign logo because people were still going to the grocery stores and they were still going outside. So the masks were the most effective merchandise that we had. And we also showed that we were 100% behind, the safety guidelines. We messaged around COVID a lot. So I was watching city council. I was messaging on spending. There was a lot of messaging that we had about the pandemic itself and the spending of money and the misspending of money and lack of prioritization, especially because we were a hotspot. We also, I think one of the things that I really hope that we can work on traditional media, right? We had one debate in El Paso. It was in English, it wasn't in Spanish. And when we were at the polls, the difference between people knowing that there was even a mayor's race from the day before, the day after the debate that aired was incredible. And so it's unfortunate. A lot of our traditional media will not cover these races, and important. And so we can't just rely on Zoom. And even though we did a lot of that and a lot of social media, you're still speaking to a self-selected audience, right? A lot of our communities don't have access to Zoom and the internet, and our older constituents don't even have smartphones. And so we still have to figure out ways to reach them. And they do watch the news. They do watch traditional TV, non-cable TV. So I think some ways that we can do that, that would be really helpful to our constituents. Something else that I think was helpful, we did the door hangers that had a lot of information on them, because we did not knock on doors. We were trying to keep everyone safe. We had really horrible COVID numbers, and so we did not knock on doors. We just left the door hangers, and then we had a lot of phone banking going on so we could try to follow up, and that's it. I think access to the band, to data can sometimes be really hard. So I think that as progressives too, we have to figure out how to crack the code, because we don't always get access to all of the data that we need. So that was also an impediment that we had to overcome. So that was helpful.
Thank you so much, Veronica.
Thanks, everybody. And I particularly liked your point, Veronica, about turning the virus into a campaign issue, because that really affects every position that anyone might run for. So I think that's a key thing to look at doing. So that wraps up our session. Diane and I would like to thank you guys for being incredible. I think I learned a lot. Diana?
Absolutely. So much to learn from. Shout out to Junior with the Our Revolution membership card. But we want to thank all of our panelists, Christian, Veronica, Jessica, Junior. Thank you all for all of the information that you shared, your experience and your knowledge. We are also very grateful to all the folks that are engaging with us in the chat. The chat was lit, y'all. There's so much content going on there. And there was a lot of really great feedback in terms of everything that our panelists shared. It was very inspiring. So we appreciate you all. And thank you for fighting the good fight for all of us and all of the amazing work that you do and putting yourselves on the line each and every time, authentically and unapologetically. So we appreciate you.
So we're going to have a brief interlude. Join us back here at 1 o'clock for another incredible panel on transforming the Democratic Party. See you guys at 1 o'clock sharp.
looks like it's 1 o'clock. We're ready for our next panel. Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Vasquez. I am from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, although right now I live in Austin because I'm a student at UT. And I'm really glad to be joining y'all today. So today we're having an awesome panel that's going to feature multiple people who are in the Texas Democratic Party that are progressive and that are fighting for our values and championing our rights in those positions. And we're going to get to learn a little bit more about what they do and how they got in those positions and why it's so important. My other co-host is actually Hunter Evans, a chair, a Democratic Party chair, who's very, very progressive, and I'm sure he'll let you know all about it in a sec. Hunter, are you on the call?
Yeah, Chris. My name is Hunter Evans, and I'm a county chair for Red River County, up in Northeast Texas.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining today. We're just gonna get started. I'm gonna ask each one of y'all to just give yourself a 1-minute introduction. Of course, when we get to the questions, there will only be 2 minutes each, and this should be very, very easy for y'all. So no pressure. Who would like to get started from one of our panelists? Does anyone want to raise their hand? I'll pick the first one. Let's see. We'll go with Andre. I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
It's all good. Hi, Chris and Hunter. Good to see y'all. Good to see everyone, and thank y'all for having me. So, my name's Andre Triber. I am really proud to represent Texas on the DNC. I was just elected at the last state convention in 2020 out of the Youth Caucus, where we had over 3,000 young delegates, which was really cool. And it's probably not surprising to y'all what the overall makeup of those young delegates were in terms of presidential preference. And I was really proud to be supported and endorsed by Our Revolution at that convention. I also happen to be the treasurer for the Texas Young Democrats. So I, obviously am very, very involved in youth stuff. And we actually just spent the last week at the Young Democrats of America convention, where we elected a really sweet progressive slate of officers, and including multiple progressives from Texas, like Colby Duhan, Mina Davis, Hannah Horick, all now have national or regional officer spots in the Young Democrats of America. So really proud to be with that crew. And I'm just super stoked to talk with everyone today about reforming the Democratic Party from the inside. It's something that I'm really passionate about, something I've been working hands-on with, especially since 2016 when I was first elected to the state Democratic Executive Committee. And it's something that's really important, and in my opinion also really overlooked when people get really passionate about wanting to talk about policy issues, platform items, and stuff like that. Things like the rules and the structure of our party are often overlooked, so I'm glad we're going to dedicate some time to talk about that today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Andre. Who would like to, let me see, of our panelists, would Elizabeth like to go next?
Absolutely. Hi, good afternoon, friends. This is such a fantastic summit. I'm learning so much. I want to thank Clayton for inviting me. My name is Elizabeth Smizer. I serve as the chair for the Taylor County Democratic Party. I probably came to politics by an unusual route, and I don't think I probably have been a part of this movement as long as some of the experienced veterans here, but I came by kind of an odd way. I was taking a break from college and didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, and my sister had been very active in door-to-door Kirby sales of all things, and I needed to make some money for school. And I took a jump. I moved all the way to West Texas. I grew up in Houston. Natural introvert, so it was quite a switch for me, and really just an unusual choice, but I needed to do something and I needed to take a break. And for 5 years, I worked all across West Texas, knocking on doors, really learning the communities, from Fort Worth to Odessa, San Angelo to Wichita Falls, and every single small community in between. And I did that for 5 years, going door to door, wearing jeans and cowboy boots. And I needed to make a switch after that. 5 years in door to door sales is a bit of a long time. And I found a position in media marketing for one of the local NBC affiliates. I started becoming ingrained, used to and acquainted with the community in which I lived for the very first time. I was working all over West Texas, but didn't really know my own community in Abilene very well. And I started learning about the businesses, the nonprofits, making friends. And I started to find these people who were active in these fantastic causes and wanted to be involved. There was a groundbreaking election for the first African American mayoral candidate, and I was just very inspired to become a part of that and quit my job as a media marketer and just volunteered my time because I knew sales wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. I wanted to get involved in a cause that mattered. And so I worked full time on this campaign, and we got the first African American mayor elected in Abilene, Texas, West Texas, and that was quite an accomplishment. I found myself a really easy job in state government, and this enabled me to really dive into this newfound passion for campaigning. I worked on a number of underdog campaigns, local politics, and it was by doing this that I made a lot of friends, established a voice. Nobody associated me with Democrat politics, partisan politics. I just started to establish a platform and a reputation within the local community. So people got to know me. And when there was an opportunity to intern for the local Democratic Party, it piqued my interest. I knew I wanted to dive even deeper into the things that mattered, the things that made a difference in everyone's lives. And so during Beto's campaign for Senate, I worked as the intern. It was a fantastic experience. Of course, got to put my door-to-door skills to use. We put everything into that campaign. That was, again, quite an experience. And after serving as the intern, the local chair was stepping down, and they asked me to run. So I did. Somebody needed to. Our group is an older, more established group. So being a young person, a part of the local Democratic Party and taking lead of that, there were quite a few challenges in doing so that I'd love to discuss, as part of this panel as we dive deeper into shaping or reshaping the Democratic Party in a more progressive fashion.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Let's see, who else? Is Mike available? Is Mike on the call?
Yeah, I'm right here. It's good to see everybody. Hi, my name is Mike Floyd. I'm currently the treasurer for the State Democratic Party. I was elected, back in 2018 at the state convention, and have been in that role now for three and a half years, which is longer, as I say it out loud. We've done a lot in those 3 years. A lot has happened. And good to see so many familiar faces. Scott, good to see you. Farouk as well. Dylan and I serve on the STEC together. Andre used to be there. But my involvement with the OR goes all the way back to 2016 with the Bernie campaign, right as the campaign ended and OR was in its infancy, endorsed by OR in 2017 for my run for school board. So absolutely looking forward to getting into the weeds about the technical aspects and rules of the party, which I think are really, really important for everyone to understand. But thanks for having me. I want to keep it short because I know we're running behind a bit.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate that, Mike. Is Dylan available next?
Yeah, I'm here. Can y'all hear me? All right. My name is Dylan Forbes. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am an SDEC committee man for Senate District 11, which includes Galveston County, parts of Harrison, the northern part of Brazoria County. And I'm really happy to be a part of our revolution. I was endorsed in my House election for HD 29 in 2018. And after I did not win my primary, I'm very lucky to live in the same district as Scott, because he just asked me, like, hey, do you want to be a part of our revolution? Do you know anything about the political landscape here? And I didn't. And, being a part of our revolution means being a part of a huge community, whether it's in your region, in the state, or in the nation. Following that, I was endorsed for the Texas Democratic Convention to sit on the resolutions board by Our Revolution in 2018, and I attended the PCCC Our Revolution candidate training in DC also in 2018. And what I'm really excited about being an Our Revolution member and being on the Texas Democratic Party executive board is we get to define accountability. We get to steer, the way the party moves forward. We get to build coalitions and ensure that we're not leaving anybody on the cutting room floor. And we're really structured about like removing capitalist ideologies from Texas politics. And, Our Revolution people are doing that. We're staying up, past 2 a.m. during the Texas Democratic Party convention, fighting for platforms and resolutions and all these different things and rules. So I'm excited to be on this panel with such great people. So thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you so much, Dylan. Is Farouk available?
I am available. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you all for inviting me here, first of all, to be a panelist. And secondly, I just want to say that I wasn't sure if I was going to have to wear a mask or not on this Zoom call. But the good thing is that the governor, since he doesn't know what the heck he's doing, and now the Texas Supreme Court has also told the governor to shut up. So that was pretty good. Really enjoyed that. I was like, and all GOP Texas Supreme Court just told our governor he cannot do anything about mask mandates. That's just wonderful. That was a great moment. Anyway, who am I? So let me see. I started off as vice chair of the Texas Democratic Party. I'm the former vice chair for that. In 2016, helped with Bernie's campaign, became a surrogate in Texas. Spoke at a big event in Dallas, and that was like the thrill of my life. I'd never done anything like that. So it's like where you can say hello and 8,000 people go, hello, and you're like, okay. You get kind of scared. And then in 2020, of course, was behind the scenes with the campaign again, got to be a surrogate, a speaker, and also got to be the Texas campaign co-chair here. And we came really close. But that's basically what I've done and what I continue to do. I consider myself to be a progressive. I think Our Revolution Texas is a great organization. I think Clayton, Scott, and many of you have done such a great job here. Cannot think of any way of not supporting this organization and just publicizing it and getting our progressive vote out. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate that a lot. My next question for y'all, and I guess we'll go back to Andre, is in regards to what is your position that you currently hold within either DNC, Texas Democratic Party, whatever it may be, and why is it important for a progressive to hold that position? Would you like to start first, Andre? Are you good to go?
I suppose I could. Okay, so right now Texas elects 11 members. Currently, we elect 11 members to serve on the DNC, and so I'm one of the 11 members of that elected Texas delegation. We send a couple more folks. Some are appointed nationally. We also automatically send our state chair and vice chair as DNC members. But so the DNC is the national executive committee for our party. So there are a lot of impactful things that the DNC decides. I think probably the most high-profile stuff that folks on this call would care about are obviously around the presidential primaries, the rules around that, reforming things like caucuses, making those more accessible, and or, in my opinion, hopefully getting rid of them, but that's a different story. Superdelegate reform, making sure that they're not able to sway an election beyond the popular vote. things like the order of the states and how we actually balance delegate distribution to make sure things are fair. That ultimately like comes from the DNC. So if you care about how those things are decided, then you care about who makes up the DNC. I am really happy that I have been able to fall in with a group of progressive folks nationally. Some of them y'all probably heard about from like OR National, but we're actually in this really weird spot where we have not been able to really have an in-person meeting yet, and a Zoom meeting of 450 people is not happening. So this October is actually going to be our first DNC meeting, so I'm going to get the chance to actually meet and talk with some people that I've only ever known like via group chat. I don't get to see them for the first time. Another big thing that happens this October related to the DNC is the chair gets to make a bunch of appointments nationally. There's appointed members, and some number of those, just by way of Texas being large, we always end up with some Texans on that as well. That's something people are free to lobby about. The idea, hopefully, around the appointments is to make the DNC more representative, both geographically and demographically. And so it is very frequently you'll see groups lobby to make sure someone that represents the ideas, values, or backgrounds of X, Y, or Z to get on. So that's something that's coming up this October. Texas DNC members also serve ex officio on the SDEC. So while I'm not a statutory member with the State Democratic Executive Committee, I still am, active in committee work. I sit on the Rules Committee. I'm working on like our state convention processes and convention planning and stuff like that as well. So yeah, really just to answer the question of why do we want a progressive person in this spot is because this stuff adds up. The more progressive you can send to the DNC, to the SDEC, the more people that you can, get committed to fighting for transparency and accessibility for our party. I think that's true transformative stuff. You have people making sure that deals are kept out of the back room and are made by the grassroots. Those are the kind of things that people can fight for with party reform, and the reason why it's so important to have to pay attention to these like SDC, DNC, party chair, party officer, kind of elections that are done traditionally at, the state convention level is what I'm talking about. So every 2 years, or with some officer positions like DNC, or the state officer positions like with Mike are every 4 years. But SDC is every 2 years, which means every 2 years there's the opportunity to elect slates of people that are going to be working on transforming and improving the Texas Democratic Party.
That's excellent. Well, thank you so much for answering both those questions. I know that's such a difficult spot to be in, being able to find ways to make sure that our rules are fair and are going to represent our values and uphold what democratic process we have in place. So we thank you so much for that. And our next speaker is Elizabeth. So I'm going to ask you the same question. How did you get in the position that you currently are in, and why is it important, or what is your position? Let me rephrase that, sorry. What is your position, what is it, and why is it so important to have a progressive serve in that role?
Right. Well, again, I serve as the county chair for our local Democratic Party. I got to this role by saying yes to opportunities, and really just establishing a work ethic and being that person that you could rely on to do the hard work, the really hard work. Knocking doors is not easy. It takes stamina. It takes skill to really engage with people in a way that you can meet minds. You can come to terms with each other. You can make friends. And when we had these elections within our local community, again, nonpartisan elections, I had this reputation for just being passionate about the work. And I was so very lucky to find the opportunity to be involved with our local Democratic Party. This is the grassroots. So if grassroots organizing is something that you love, you will get to do that as a county chair. There's so many important reasons for progressives to run for this position. In my area, Taylor County, I live in the city of Abilene. To give you an idea about what this community is like, I think West Texas has a bit of a reputation, but in 2016, our county voted for Donald Trump more than any other county in the nation. So this has been quite a challenge to try very hard to win hearts and minds, to get to expose people to a different way of thinking. The news here loves controversy. so I get lots of calls. You know, will you do an interview? It's a fantastic joy and a privilege, even though we represent, you know, a growing minority and we're definitely making gains. You get to represent a point of view that people don't get to hear very often, and they need to hear. It's very important that they hear it. They haven't been exposed to it. And so this is such a privilege to be able to share this way of thinking, this way of living with other people. You know, don't take that for granted. You know, never underestimate the power of your voice and what you have to say, and believe that with confidence that you will know what to say. You'll do your best, that as a progressive, because you have this innate sense of caring, that you'll be able to connect with people in a meaningful way. So I think the nature of the platform is very powerful. Redistricting, this is so important. We have the census data coming out. I will have the opportunity as county chair to serve on the Citizens Advisory Committee to our local commissioners court to redraw those lines. And there's nothing more important, as many of our other wonderful panelists have covered, voting, our elections. This is foundational to our democracy. And we know exactly how those numbers add up and how they can make a difference within our local elections. This is such an important thing to be able to do and to be able to offer, to be able to serve in that way. You get to help find and select candidates, you know, empower those people. You get to work for good people. I had the opportunity to campaign for Clayton when he ran for Texas Senate, and that was a privilege. And you get the chance to help really fantastic candidates. Again, I mentioned that grassroots organizing. You get to do those things that you really love. You get to find those people within your community that care about those issues. There's such a long list. It's very important fundamentally that progressives run for this position, because it's, again, at the grassroots level. You can talk to people. You really can make a difference, one person at a time. I really believe that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that, Elizabeth. I think, is Mike available? Is Mike there?
Yep, still here.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to ask you very much the same question. What is your position, and specifically, why is it so important for us to have a progressive serve in that role?
Right. So again, I serve as treasurer for the state party. And if you look at our party rules, what that means is I am responsible for issuing a financial report at all the quarterly meetings and do whatever else the chairman decides, right? Which is, we're changing that actually in the next meeting coming up in September, which I'm excited about. We're basically ingraining into the rules transparency, financial transparency. I think it'll be the most transparent financial report in the history of the state party. It'll be permanent, which is fantastic. It's why rules are so important. Now, so the SDEC itself is the governing board, but the 5 officers are the board of the board. So we meet actually very often. It's very rare for me to go a week without talking to the other officers. And we basically make sure that in between the SDEC meetings, the party can still function, that we're still making decisions. So it's an advisory committee. We advise the chairman, but I'm in the room, and you know, I'm issuing advice to the chairman, the vice chair. We're collaborating together, working with committee members like Libby Willis, who's the chair of the Rules Committee. You know, trying to shepherd through what we just kind of did with the our review. We did an annual massive review of the party. So it's really important. And you know, just quite frankly, why is it important for progressives to be there? Because it's important for progressives to be there. That those values are important. So yes, Scott, exactly. They have to be in the room. And if I wasn't there, it would be someone else. And you know, that's the kind of like the tricky part is it's really important to get people in who believe in our values, because someone else has got to be there. And you know, we wouldn't be likely having so much transparency if it was someone else who wasn't a progressive. So just quite simply, it's important to be there because it's important to be there.
Yes, thank you so much, Mike. Yeah, and I will continuously stress when we do get in these positions, the number one difference that a lot of people are going to see is the amount of transparency that will come out of the actual process itself and how we go about it. Because for a long time, the DNC has a very, a very long history of not being very transparent. But in recent years, and since Bernie Sanders went in the Democratic primary, we started gaining seats and we started gaining leadership within the Texas Democratic Party that we had not seen in previous years. And that's really allowed us to have people like our panelists on this call to be able to serve in those roles and be able to change and be able to highlight some of the disparities that had transpired in the previous years. So that's why we're really thankful for each one of y'all serving on those committees and leadership positions. You hit it exactly correctly. Our next speaker is Dylan. Dylan, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. So I'm going to ask you, the same question. What is your position? What does it do? And why is it, important for a progressive to serve in that role?
Yeah, so I sit as Senate District Executive Committee Man for Senate District 11, and I sit on that executive body that Mike and Andre were talking about as well. Why is it important? So one thing that I have come to learn from being around so many progressive organizers is we don't want to sell anybody short to make a deal. Right? Like, we're not trying to constantly reach across the aisle and say, okay, if you give me criminal justice reform, I'll stop pushing, cancel student debt, right? Those aren't the things that we say. We say criminal justice reform is as important as canceling student debt, which is as important as Medicare for all and expanding Medicaid, which is as important as union jobs and adopting a Green New Deal, right? And so to me, that's what's incredibly important about having progressives in the room and in these positions, because being in the room, I bring experiences that Andre and Mike and Farouk and Elizabeth don't have, and they bring experiences that I don't have. And when we come together as progressives, building this coalition to speak about, I'm here today, right now on this panel at work. I work at a public library. And, by me being so passionate about why I need to do this and talking to my coworkers about it and having a supportive working environment, I'm able to sit here today in my workplace and speak to y'all. Right? So when you have that passion, when you have that understanding about the way these structures work, you show up and you're not compromising. And it's not just about the SDEC or sitting on the Texas Democratic Party proper. I mean, we have precinct chairs that are open that people can walk into today. If you live in a community with an HOA, when you're sitting on an HOA board, you get to fight for residents. You get to fight for the humanity of your neighbors. And it's the same thing for the mud board. There are mud boards that don't have people sitting on them that you could just walk into and say, I want to put my name on here, fill out an application, and you're sitting on a board representing your community tomorrow as a progressive. And so in co-ops and rural areas, and so having these ideas and these demographics represented in the room. I know more rural progressives fighting for hospitals and criminal justice reforms that show up to every meeting, that are showing up to national conventions, and we definitely need more people. So whatever your issue is, build that coalition, learn about someone else's issue, because we don't fight pushing each other up. When we fight for rights, we fight shoulder to shoulder on every issue. And I've learned that from my friend FJ Jones. You fight shoulder to shoulder. You show up for your people, and they show up for you, because we're all just a big family in this state trying to figure it out. But that's why it's incredibly perfect to have progressives stepping into these positions.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Dylan. Yes, it's very important that we have progressives in these positions, and I'm glad that every one of y'all on this call are fighting to make sure that we get more of them elected from the Texas Democratic Party to the DNC, all around, the party chairs, so on and so forth. Our next panelist, Rook, are you available? Are you there?
I am absolutely here and I'm available.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to ask you the same question. So what is your position and what does it do? And why is it so important for a progressive to serve in that role?
Well, I'm not in an official capacity right now. My last position was, co-chair for the Bernie Sanders campaign here in Texas. But it is really important for progressives to be in leadership positions. It's really important to bring others in as well. If you're on Twitter every day, you can speak to people who will continue to agree with you because they're all progressives. But if you really get outside the circle, you will see that there's a lot of people that may not agree with you or maybe don't understand what you're talking about. So there's an education process to be done. And that's grassroots. It has to be grassroots. So at the grassroots, we have to get our progressive values out. We have to get progressive candidates elected. But party structures, you were just talking about the DNC. And we know they're listening right now, so they can listen all they want. But it's important for progressives to get into the DNC. People complain about organizations. They can complain about the DNC. They can complain about this organization, that organization, whatever they like. You're entitled to that. However, change, as Bernie Sanders says, comes from within. You have to start and move your way up. That's how change happens. It doesn't happen from the top down. It happens from the bottom up. And that's the only way, whether it be the Texas Democratic Party, you want to change something, yelling and screaming and giving your point of view is not gonna work. And like Dylan and Andre were talking about, you can't just make deals with people and give up your values. You have to keep your values in place while you're doing it. So it's very important that we increase our presence in the SDEC, officers in the party. That is the only way, because then you become the mouthpiece for an organization. When you become the mouthpiece for an organization, you speak for the party, and then you're addressing the state of Texas. You're addressing all the Democrats in the state of Texas, who will then understand that this is the direction we're going in. And people think it's some wild left, whatever direction, all this. It's not. It's just about caring about people. That's all we're doing. We're asking for student loan forgiveness. We're asking for free college tuition. We're asking for a decent minimum wage, $15 minimum wage. We're asking for really good things, and believe it or not, all these people will agree with you. They'll agree with you when you start talking about them. So we have a lot more. We think we have differences, and we can get into differences, but we actually have a lot in common. We really, really, we believe in things that will help the masses with economics and positions, etc. When I hear about groups like Blackwater coming in and buying up all these homes at outrageous prices and creating this huge rental market, and all of a sudden you're pricing out first-time home buyers. I was a first-time home buyer many years ago, but right now first-time home buyers can't even get in who should be qualified. They can't get in because it's crazy right now, and it's just not fair. Things like that. I'm not all for regulation, but there's something there that's not right. You got to say, hey, large organizations above this certain amount should not be able to come in by 30 homes and 50 homes in an area, and all of a sudden the price is going up and nobody can get in on it. But getting back to progressives, I would say that we need to keep doing what we are doing, but we need to do more of it. We need to now reach out within our organization, within the people who are here today, who are interested in this, in our revolution, and say, hey, what would you can identify people here. I can even see them on the screen who you think would be good people to be in a certain position. It doesn't have to be just running for office. It can be, getting somebody into the SDC, getting somebody into the party structure, and finally, it's really important that Andre was talking about this, is getting people into the DNC. That is a national organization, and we have to have more progressives there. It's very, very difficult if you look at the policies, et cetera, that are put out, and that's fine, they have the majority, policies, et cetera, that are put out, that it favors a certain segment. You know, it doesn't favor a lot of progressive values. And they people can shun us when we're progressive, but bringing us back into the fold in 2024 is what they want to do. When there's an election year, oh yeah, progressives are great. And as soon as the election's over, it's like, go away, don't say anything more. So we need to hang around and we need to become more powerful. And I think we can do it. That's it.
Absolutely. Hunter, are you there?
Yeah. So I've learned so much already. I do want to ask an important question. How can we make the party more progressive? Like, do you have any tips for what people on the ground can do? And I'll start with Dylan.
Yeah, this is a great question. How can we make the party more progressive? One of the things that I really stand on that is hard to learn is how to practice good conflict resolution skills and understand that this political landscape that we are building, that we are working in, I'm 33. I plan on being here at least the next 30 years fighting climate justice with everybody else, right? And so that means that I need to be able to grow with my community to understand that when the revolution comes, we all need to be ready. And, it's hard because every election cycle, whether it's a municipal or a midterm or a presidential or a weird special election that Greg Abbott put together in 2 weeks, we all got to show up, right? No matter what, we have to deal with these conflicts and we have to solve these problems as progressive people. And so learning how to work with your neighbors, learning how to identify when, you have people rising up and saying things that don't work. Like, we have to learn how to get through that together. I am very fortunate to live in a local progressive, organizing structure where we all can talk about stuff. We can talk about disagreements. And, when we butt heads, we come together and we're talking through the problems. So that's one huge thing that we can do as progressives to help the party. Another thing that we can do is we have to stack our meetings with progressive voices. If you have a meeting or something that's majority men, try to have the women's voices be spoken more. Same thing with our transgender and non-binary siblings. We have to be creating a space for our marginalized siblings to be heard. And this also goes for our Black organizers, our Indigenous and Asian organizers, our Brown organizers. We cannot compromise their voices anymore. We need to be the place for people to come and get empowered and speak about their issues. And then again, we line up shoulder to shoulder. And so whether this means, going through, diversity trainings in your local organizations, whether people have issues around age or race or gender or, not knowing how to include the LGBT community. We need to create that and do that hard work, because that's what is going to ensure we have a healthy grassroots movement, not a toxic one.
Thank you, Dylan.
Yeah, thank you, Dylan. I'm only 22, and I would be happy to join you in this fight for the next 10 years. So next, Andre.
Dylan actually used the only phrase I typed on this notepad the whole time while I was trying to think of an answer, which is showing up. I mean, if we want to talk about making the party specifically progressive, I'm not talking about any one candidate, any one race, any one election cycle. If we're talking about the party as a structure, like it is just showing up. That is so much more fundamental to that we've got to be doing that first before we can do anything. If we don't show up, we don't win majorities in the party. If we don't show up, we don't get our people on committees. If we don't show up, we don't get our people into leadership. And and so then you lose out on that chance. So just above everything, when it comes to making the party progressive, is getting informed on what are the like major inflection points, the points where you actually have the opportunity to get involved with the party. In Texas, this is traditionally structured around like the state convention, but this can easily be replicated at the county party level, which we've already heard some of today. But a lot of county parties, especially in urban areas, like I don't even know the number of precinct chairs in Harris County. It's a lot, But all the way up from Harris County down to the smallest county parties that are sometimes just a county chair with no precinct chairs. We've got to have our people showing up, because when we are the people that are actually in the party, in these positions, then we are the ones making the decisions. And that's I really it sounds it almost sounds kind of dumb how simple I'm making that sound. But if we show up and we are in the majority of any given body, then that means we get to make the decisions of that body. So whatever we are fighting for at any given point in time, whatever party reforms that we're thinking we need at that time, you will have the votes if you get your people on it. And things beyond that, obviously there's a ton more in the details about what it takes, about organizing around getting people to the right points in time, the right places, getting our numbers to where they need to be. But there's obviously a lot of detail involved, and there's work in getting these people to where they need to go. But that's the first like hurdle that we in Texas have not been able to get past yet, because we've been able to get a lot of good progressives, into a lot of good and high spaces within our party, but it still hasn't been enough yet. So we got to get the critical mass of people in place, and then you'll just start seeing the dominoes fall. Like we're doing a lot right now as the party, and I would not say the SDC is a majority progressive, though we've got a lot of progressive people on there. And you'll also find on party reform stuff that folks could be very, very, moderate Biden voters, in this past primary, and they are right there with us on the fight on some of these like party reform things. But the fact is we're still a minority in the state party. And even with that, I think we are, as Mike alluded to earlier, really close to doing some huge reforms that the Texas Democratic Party has never seen. And so imagine if we then got to the majority in these things, like the kind of transformation we could do. So
thank you so much, Andre, for your wonderful point. We definitely need to show up to win these elections and bring about the change that we want to see.
Yeah.
We only have about 2 minutes left.
Okay, I will ask Mike.
Well, I appreciate it, and I wholeheartedly agree with Andre and about showing up, staying involved. I think actually that's where Scott Fulis is the master of it. If you stay involved in a committee meeting and keep going and keep everyone on until you get your way, it's often those who speak up get what they want. Two other things I would mention. Surprised Andre didn't mention this. Robert's rules. Really important to know them. You can even download a simple PDF of like basic stuff, because they will use Robert's rules to stop conversations, and we can use Robert's rules to keep them going. So that's really important. The final thing I would say, I don't want to sound insensitive, because by no means am I saying that we should compromise our values, but I do think at some point we progressives should be comfortable taking the 80%. It's a strategy that Bernie just used nationally, where Manchin and Sinema were saying they wanted to pare down reconciliation to 1 trillion. And Bernie Sanders said, nope, let's do 6. So they agreed that 3.5 was more reasonable, right? He took, and that's not 80% mathematically, but he took the victory. And I think that we can do that as a party. Oftentimes, if we have a list of 10 demands, the party will say, hey, these first 5 are okay, we'll do that, but the other 5 are crazy. And they'll focus on those 5. I say, let's take the 5, and then we can always work on getting more stuff done later. It's just really important to score the wins, to keep the notches going in the right way. But yeah, Robert's rules, showing up and staying involved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
All right. Thank you so much to all our panelists who spoke today. I really appreciate each and every one of y'all who have been in the efforts to transform the Texas Democratic Party, DNC, so on and so forth. We are really excited about the gains we made this last election and will continue to make going forward, in future primaries and whatnot. But with that, that concludes our time with this panel, and I'm actually going to hand it back to Clayton. Clayton, are you there?
Join the movement that starts from within. The moment you take up new habits, a new journey begins. I would rise, I've been rolling up and pass around the true light of healing. Whoa, breathe in relief, breathe out a brighter fate. 1, 2, 3, it's time to keep on grooving every day. And then we'll soar over low tides, high vibes every day. It's time to keep on grooving every day. And then we'll soar over low tides, high vibes every day. They try to bring us down as they're falling on their faces. Oh no, we need to remember the golden rule. Forget their silly rat races. So will you rise up? The time is now. So rise up, awaken. You know that we are the power, the dawning of a brand new day. Hit 1, 2, 3. It's time to keep on grooving every day. And then we'll soar over low tides, high vibes every day. It's time to keep on grooving every day. And then we'll soar over low tides, high vibes every day. I know the road will rise up to meet you. That's right. And you are strong in circumstance, it can't defeat you. Yes, the sun is rising on your horizon. So let it fill your eyes and let it guide you. It's time to keep on grooving every day. And then we'll soar over low tides, high vibes every day. It's time to keep on grooving every day. Yeah, hey, yeah, and then we'll soar over low tides, high vibes every day. It's time to keep on grooving every day. Yeah, yeah,
Yay! That's my friend, y'all. I'm so proud of her, Sharita. Do my other song.
You want Time to Grow?
Time, yeah.
Well, hey, I wanted to say it's really nice to be included. There's a lot of musicians that come from all over Texas and all over the country. And right now, a lot of us have lost our careers. And, I was listening to Cam Franklin play last night. She has a lot of words of wisdom. And if you have a chance to include more musicians, I would say please do. We're here for you. We're definitely here for you.
One of my favorites.
I am the light. say, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's time to grow. Whoa, whoa. It's time to grow. Whoa, whoa. I am the one that shines so bright, the one you've been waiting for. All you have to do is just knock upon the door, and I say, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's time to grow. Whoa, whoa. It's time to grow. Whoa. Take some time just for today. Step out of the track. Remember who you are again, and take your power back. And I say, whoa, 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 whoa. It's time to grow. Whoa, whoa. It's time to grow. Whoa, whoa. Take the trip, love Mother Earth. Show her what you're really worth. Raise the vibe and we'll never come down. Look inside and find where healing's found. It's time to grow. Whoa. It's time to grow.
Hey!
Plant the seed, it's time to sow. Give it love and let it grow. Then we'll harvest once again and turn
Medicine!
Medicine and
Hey!
whoa, whoa, whoa. It's time to grow. To grow. It's time to grow. It's time to grow. Look how you grow.
Hey, Sharita.
Thank you so much, Sharita.
Awesome.
Thank you for having us. Hey, real quick, I know a guy who does tissue culture, and I was thinking about it, and I don't know if anybody around you guys works on food deserts. I would love to talk to one of them about putting tissue culture labs in where food deserts are to help build, but they don't have to even buy food, they can just make it. So if anybody knows anything about that, I'd love to talk to them.
Yeah,
My friend Sharita stays very busy. She's in California now, touring and performing. So we really appreciate you, and we will have you at our next event. Believe me. Thank you so much, and I love you. From me and our Revolution, Texas, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Latanya. Appreciate you very much. If anybody's in Austin, I'm here till the 25th, or in North Cal. Tell them to come by and say hi.
Love you, Sharita.
I love you too. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Sharita. For this next panel, we ask that all of the panelists keep their introductions to 1 minute and keep their answers to questions to 2 minutes.
Mia, FJ, are you there?
Are we ready to start?
I think it's that time, FJ. Let's do
It's
this.
that time. Hey, Mia. All right.
Hey, girl, hey.
Okay. Well, good afternoon and welcome to How to Achieve Progressive Policy on a Local Level. This is your last panel before the business session, and yes, we've saved the best for last. My name is FJ Jones, and I'm one of your co-hosts for this segment. I'm a member of the Missouri of Fort Bend County chapter in the great Gulf Coast region. Additionally, I am a former nationally endorsed Our Revolution candidate. So at this time, I will turn it over to my fellow co-host, Mia Diaz.
Hey, y'all. My name is Mia Diaz. My pronouns are she, her, and ella. I am the South Texas director for Our Revolution. I'm a proud member of the Our Revolution RGV chapter that consists of Starr County, Hidalgo, Cameron, and Willacy County, representing the 956. So we'd like to welcome all of our members and our speakers today as we go into a deep talk about how we can come together locally and ensure that progressive standards are within our region areas. FJ?
All right. So there are some incredible progressive elected officials on this panel. We will hear a brief introduction from each of them, followed by a question and answer period. So please place your questions in the chat or comment section, and we welcome any panelists to respond to each other as well. So let's start with Ms. Tiava Bell for introductions.
Hello, my name is Tiava Bell. I'm the judge of the 339th Criminal District Court in Harris County. It's a felony district court, so we handle anything from low-level possession cases all the way up to capital murder cases. I am a newly elected progressive candidate. Well, I guess I'm not a candidate anymore. A newly elected official as a result of all the phone banking and the block walking and hanging out the U of H rallies to help pass out literature. I just thank y'all for the support, and there are a lot of things we can do now as it relates to criminal justice reform. It's time to not just talk about the work that needs to be done, but do the work.
Thank you, Tiva. Let's turn it over to our next panelist.
Our next panelist will be Terry Castillo.
Hello, everyone. I'm Terry Castillo. I represent San Antonio's District 5 on City Council. District 5 is San Antonio's most economically poor district, and like many cities throughout the nation, are experiencing economic investment that's outpacing stagnant wages. So our office is about ensuring that our public money works for us, and I want to thank Our Revolution for the work they put into our campaign to help us win this seat.
Thank you, Terry.
Next,
thank
we
you so
will
much.
have,
Next, turn over to our next panelist.
Next, we will have Mr. Ken Wilkerson. Mr. Wilkerson, is he here? Okay. Well, we will have Mr. David Stout.
Afternoon, everybody. Buenas tardes. My name is David Stout. I am a county commissioner in El Paso, Texas. I represent Precinct 2, which is all of central El Paso, and I've been in office since 2015. Strong progressive, and I'm just so happy to be here with y'all today and to share ideas and make sure that we continue to push our progressive agenda as far as we can. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have Mr. Wilkerson here? Okay. Well, the first question was for him. So we will have to move on, and I was really interested in hearing that question, hearing the answer to that question. So, okay, Mia.
All right, so we'll move it on to Terry. Are there any progressive policies that San Antonio City Council may be considering, or would you like them to consider?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's several policies that I think San Antonio City Council must consider. Right now, we're in the midst of an increasing pandemic, and we're seeing an increase of folks getting notifications that children in our schools are contracting COVID. the eviction moratorium, while it was extended to October, we know it's a can that we're kicking further down the road. So what I'm going to continue to ask my colleagues is that they support a right to cure ordinance to ensure that our families have enough time to garner the funds necessary to ensure that they get to keep a roof over their head. And again, to take bold policy action and to ensure that we are using our federal dollars to ensure that folks can continue to pay their utilities and their rent and their mortgage as we all learn to continue to navigate through this pandemic. That's definitely something that I would hope our city council strongly considers. And, you know, it shouldn't be a discussion or something debated. I think we all know that housing is indeed healthcare, especially now in the midst of a pandemic. And that's one progressive policy that I believe should be a non-negotiable for anyone who identifies as a progressive.
Thank you, Terry. FJ? Ooh, I forgot to take myself off mute there. Okay. Alrighty. The next question is for Ms. Tiava Bell. How can judges impact the progressive movement?
There are a lot of things that judges can do to impact the progressive movement. Number one, the thing that we've done is we've gone from a spot in our history where we've looked at prison as a way to solve our problems. We can't incarcerate ourselves out of the problems that we have, especially considering the base of the problems are found in what's going on in our neighborhoods and what's going on in our jobs and our streets. And people don't have access to funds, they don't have access to resources, they don't have access to education. It's a circle that keeps on repeating itself, and by incarcerating a symptom of the problem, you're never really going to address the problem. So when you're doing things like your sentencing or you're doing things like bonding, when you're holding somebody in jail for a low-level offense without the ability to pay, that has ramifications in every other area of our lives. It has ramifications for our kids to go to school, because when their parents are in custody, they go to school, they act out, and that impairs a teacher's ability to educate all the kids because they're focusing on the kid that's acting out over a PCS case. No, we need to be in a frame of mind where we look to how do we go and put this person in a better position, but in society, because that's where you want to end up. When they're there, they're providing for their kids, they're present, but if you're giving them the tools they need to be successful, you're also helping to improve that community. So as it relates to bond reform, I think that those are just some of the things that we need to look to. When it comes to our kids funneling through the system for things like the offenses that we commonly see them doing, the stupid stuff, all the way up to some of the more serious crimes, incarceration is not going to solve the problem. On an average kid that's going to go in front of a jury, they're going to get a probation if they go in front of the jury. On a violent crime, the average jury is not going to send them to more than 7 years. In Texas, 7 years means they get out at probably about a quarter time for some really bad half time. That means while they're a teenager, you're still going to be out. You haven't given them any jobs, any access to any resources. So who comes out? And the person that comes out will funnel back through the system, as opposed to taking the approach of giving a probation, but not these stupid probations that I just gave you a probation. No, your probation needs to be geared towards the needs, and the assessment needs to be done to see what the real resources this person lacks, so we can get them involved in programs. We also need to get the community back in the system. We're in a system now where it's all been run by the complex. That doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. What works is us in our communities investing in every single individual, and we need to invite the communities back into our system. Some of the things that I've liked that we've done, because it's a pandemic, but I definitely think it should continue, is one of the things I do now is I live stream. From the time I get on the bench until the time I get off, you can look at every decision I made, every case that comes up, it's all there. That's a good thing, but Zoom is also a good thing as it relates to people that have jobs that are trying not to lose them. If you have to take off work every 3 times a month to come up to court, they're going to fire you. It is what it is. You can only miss so many days before you get fired. If you get fired and then I put you on probation, ask you to get a job, now that you have this hit on your record, that's problematic. By allowing somebody to go in the bathroom and Zoom in for a little 5 minutes to meet them in court, they get to keep their job. They took their 15-minute break. They addressed their criminal issue, but at the same time, they're staying on the path that you want them to be on at the end of the day. I'm sorry, I talked for way too long. I hope some of those answer your questions, but there's like a lot of things. I feel like I got 4 years and I want to make all the change I can in the time I can. because when I leave, I want it to look different. I want to be able to look back and say, this is something I'm proud of. So
I really appreciate that, Tiago. When I was running for Justice of the Peace, live stream was actually not something that I actually thought about. So thanks. We'll put that on the platform. But night court was one of the things that I thought about as well, because people couldn't afford to just take off. So we were definitely trying to work out a plan for that. So I really appreciate that, and understanding, working people and what it takes, because sometimes people get on those benches and they forget what it was like. So definitely.
As a former public defender, it's hard to forget. It's real hard to forget.
I hear you. Okay, Mia, it is your turn. What's next?
Thank you. This question is actually going out to Commissioner Stout. What kind of progressive policies can a county commissioner impose?
A lot. There's a lot we can do. If we want to. Counties are a little bit different than cities in Texas. We derive our authority from the state legislature, so it can be difficult at times because the state legislature loves to preempt and intervene in local control, as we all know. But some of the biggest areas that we deal with on a county level are public safety and administration of justice. So kind of piggybacking on what Judge Bell was talking about, we've done a lot of things with pre-trial diversion here in El Paso, providing information to, for example, magistrate judges before somebody is actually thrown in jail, so that we understand, this person may not be a threat to the community. Why do we need to put them in jail? We know that when somebody's in jail for more than 2 or 3 days, the chances that they recidivate go up astronomically. And so the idea is to try to keep people from even having contact with the justice system in the first place. And so we have our pre-trial diversion program. We also recently started a program that's called the First Chance. When folks are caught with a minor possession of marijuana, they don't even have to go to the courthouse. They go do some community service and pay a fine, which they can pay over time, and it doesn't go on their record. Things like that. And when it comes to helping folks in the homeless population, we do a lot with the justice-involved individuals that are coming out of the jails and making sure that they have wraparound services through our reentry program. And so we're not just kicking them to the curb and saying good luck with the rest of your life now that you're out of jail, but we make sure that they have access to the mental health care treatment they may need to help get jobs or education, things like that. So there's a lot of things that we can do when it comes to public safety. And one thing that I'm very proud of that I pushed for at our city with our city police, and now we're starting to do so at the county. I serve on the board for the local mental health authority, and we've partnered with them to have a crisis intervention team, which is a unit or units within the law enforcement agencies that have mental health care professionals embedded with them, so that when they're called out to situations that may otherwise escalate because folks don't have the training and understand that somebody may be going through a mental health crisis. We've seen too many people die at the hands of police officers here in El Paso County because of that issue. And so I'm very proud that we've been able to take some of our funding and utilize it for programs like that. We talk about the balance of the amount of money that we spend on law enforcement as opposed to other ways to keep the public safe, and so obviously we're continuing to try to push for those those programs that don't just mean having more cops on every corner, because that's not what keeps crime down. What keeps crime down is making sure that somebody has food on their table, they have a school to go to, they have a job to go to, and they have healthcare that's easily accessible. And so all of those policies, we deal with directly at the county level.
Well, thank you so much, Commissioner. That was extraordinary. See, it's good to have progressives in local office. I am now told that Mr. Wilkerson has joined us. Is he here?
Yes, I am on the call. Thank you for having me. I'm sorry for my tardiness. Technology got the better of me this morning, and I just was barely able to make it on here. Hopefully my phone does not cut off.
No problem, sir. Will you give us a brief introduction, and then I will ask you a question?
Okay, yeah. My name is Ken Wilkerson. I'm a councilman in Killeen, Texas, and come from a really diverse background, mostly military. I retired. My wife and I retired and entered into public service just to, as kind of my mantra, you just can't stand around and if you see something broke, fix it. And so that's kind of my attitude towards going through things, especially when we start talking about the betterment of people and the problems that they're going through and trying to give them a helping hand. That's pretty much where I stand as far as most of the decisions that I make for the city of Killeen. They're definitely coming from that pretense. So, yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I won't bore you with my whole story.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. My question for you, City Councilman, is recently, Killeen City Council has passed no-knock raids, a ban on no-knock raids. Can you tell us the story of how this happened and how other cities can follow Killeen's lead?
Okay, yeah, sure. It basically generated from, it was generated from a problem we were having with serving the no-knock warrants. Not so much from a principle or a certain individual perspective, but it was just that, again, we had a problem, so you fix it, and we were serving no-knock warrants, and the very few that we did serve, the tendency was they ended in a bad way, and of course that shapes your thinking when it comes to, are these necessary at all? And so if you had asked me before I had come on the council or before we started experiencing our problems with no knock, I probably would have supported any law enforcement that said, yeah, we need to do this. But it was really a problem specifically that happened where a young lady's brother was killed here in the service of a no-knock warrant. And it made me think that, and this is prior to Breonna Taylor. It was just one of those things. It's like, why would you put yourself in that situation to where you're instigating a situation that's more dangerous than it has to be, than it already is? To be honest with you, the young lady, and I'll leave her name out of it, but she was the one that really petitioned the city for it. She did the right thing. She got into good trouble as far as petitioning and basically protesting our policy. And again, that was prior to my tenure as a councilman, and I just thought it was the right thing to do. So we were able to bring that onto the council, and it was a common sense thing at a point. I mean, you're saving lives. Not only are you saving the lives of innocent bystanders and the police, but the assailant as well. I mean, we want everybody to have their due justice and their time in court to, either prove they're innocent or, if they're found guilty, then they're found guilty. But so it was just a common sense thing, and it was a unanimous. I believe it was no, it was not unanimous. Actually, we did have, I think, one dissent. But if any other towns or cities are looking at getting rid of the no-knocks, I would say it's just a common sense thing. I mean, you can use it as, you don't have to use your city necessarily as the template to to form your opinion. You can look at other cities and just see that the policy in that was flawed. And so I think we'll have a safer city because of it. I do believe that we will even save the lives of people who they may be assailants and they may be, have warrants, but that doesn't mean that we have to barge into their their domicile without notice. I mean, there's just no need to do that.
Well, thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate you gracing us with your presence. And so at this point, I have another question that I'd like to ask all of the panelists, but I do want to make sure that we get to the attendees' questions. Zoom crew, do we have anything in the chat or comments? Questions for this panel?
This time.
Huh?
Not at this time.
Okay, perfect. All righty. This question is for all of the panelists, and I would like to start with Ms. Castillo. How can your constituents work with you to get progressive policies passed?
Absolutely. Here in San Antonio, and as with my background as a community organizer, this District 5 seat, as cliche as it sounds, belongs to the working people of District 5. And what we've been doing in our outreach, like for example, we just had a utilities fair right now, and it's about, one, engaging folks and meeting them where they're at. We're connecting folks to rental and utility assistance, and then we're bringing them in to join us if they're concerned about utilities and rental assistance. For example, we're having a budget meeting next week, and folks who receive that assistance, we showed them the upcoming budget and how that funding's cut for that assistance. And folks are like, well, this is like very beneficial, and it helped me out. So folks are open to coming to the budget sessions to share their stories and talk about how we need to increase that funding rather than decrease it. In addition to that, the district I represent, there's a lot of need. We're a very compassionate district, ready to lend a helping hand. And with that, we have a high increase of code compliance violations in specific areas where the city has goals and intentions to redevelop. And when we look at that redevelopment, it's often unaffordable to the established communities. So in partnership with community organizations already doing the work, we're getting plugged into Code Busters, which is with the San Antonio DSA. And we're partnering together to get the list of code compliance violations and going into our neighborhoods where the need is and taking care of that code compliance violation, so that way it doesn't result in a $300 fee, which is a lot of money for our residents. Ultimately, right, it's ensuring that I'm meeting with community and that my door is always open to community organizations and folks not connected to organizations who are doing that work. And I think that's what's been most exciting about being in office. I'm just barely in my third month, is that now that we're done with all the city briefings, it's back in community and engaging community and learning from community as we move forward to win this bold policy, because it's going to take a lot of work. Getting into office was just not even the first step, right? We need to continue to organize to win those things that we deserve.
Okay. Who would you like to go next, Mia?
Let's go ahead with Commissioner Stout.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what the councilwoman said. You know, I know that she and probably myself and others try to be as accessible as possible to the public, and you know, we try to do participatory budgeting at El Paso County, some as well. We're starting to do that. You know, we have really great relationships with some of the local organizers. Unfortunately, in El Paso, we don't have as much organizing as you know, other cities in Central Texas, and that's something that we need to work on. But we do have organizations like the Border Network for Human Rights, and we have our local unions that we work with, and they've been very, very helpful to me when trying to pass some of these things, like, for example, creating an office for New Americans, which is an immigrant services office. There were a lot of folks in the community that came out and spoke in public comment during our meetings and reached out to my colleagues and told them how important they thought that would be. The same thing, we're you know, gearing up to try to create a municipal ID again here. We tried a couple of years ago. We got it passed at the county. We needed a partnership with the city, and unfortunately it failed at the city. But there's a different city council now, so we're looking to do that again. And it's really the work of the people, the community that are showing their elected officials that, you know what, if you don't listen to us, we're really going to come back at you. And so it really helps to have the community backing you, right? And that's where other elected officials start paying attention, because I can talk until I'm blue in the face about things, but I don't vote for the guy who's sitting next to me. When his constituent who votes for him is talking to him about things, then their tune might change. So it's really just so important to have the support of these community organizations, and hopefully we can build up some more of that here in El Paso in the near future. I see all these things, great things going on, like the Working Families Party and TOP and just all these amazing organizations in Austin, Dallas, and in Houston and San Antonio, and trying to get some of those folks out here. So if you know anybody who can help us out, send them my way.
Absolutely, Commissioner. I am with you. I think a lot of us, if not all of us, when it's called start with our roots in community organizing. And I a lot of times I spend most of my time trying to educate the community, because I really don't think that a lot of people realize just how much power they really have and how to leverage that power. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely, Commissioner. Especially when you're talking about a border region, just like ours, it's a very touchy subject, and there's so many things to fight for our border. So thanks so much, Commissioner.
Okay, next on that question, Ms. Tiava Bell, can you tell us how your constituents can work with you as a judge to impact progressive policy?
I think Scott hit it on the head. Here in Harris County, we're talking about bail reform, and it's something that keeps on coming up, and it drives me absolutely crazy. First off, they hijacked the progressive message, and I hate to use Donald Trump saying with some fake news, but it really is fake news. Let's talk about the reality of the situation. Every news story you hear is because of bail reform in Harris County, violent felons. Here's the problem with that. There has been no bail reform in Harris County on the felony level. The only bail reform that's been addressed on the level is a misdemeanor level. And the misdemeanor max bond that she paid is $5,000. So what you're saying is anybody that had $500, that's all that's been addressed by bail reform. That's all that's been addressed by bail reform. And they throw this term out there and say, and because of this bail reform at the felony level, those are lies, because we haven't had it at the felony level, number one. Number two, the proposals that they're giving do not address the problem. So I'd really like to answer to the question of, why are you proposing things that don't address the problem? And the answer to that is, if you address the problem that you need to address, it takes money out of your friend's pocket, and we don't want to do that. We talk about every day on our news cycles how you have a violent felony case that was out on bond and picked up a new case. Here's the thing. The law says that everybody's entitled to a bond. It's kind of motivated by the whole innocent until proven guilty thing. Now, we sometimes seem to glance over. But the reality of the situation is, in cases where you have somebody out committing multiple offenses, if the legislature was really concerned about public safety, they would put a provision in the code that allowed the judge to have a hearing and a form presentation of evidence that this person is repeatedly committing crimes, hold them at a no bond. But the judges are not allowed to hold them at no bond. There are two cases you can hold somebody at no bond. That is capital murder if the state has a proof evident hearing. What I'd like the news to ask is, how many of those proof evident hearings has the state had? Because it'll be next to none. The second one is for a violation of a protective order. Those are the only two cases under the law that you're allowed to hold them at no bond. The Constitution says specifically, I can't take into consideration the number of cases a person has when assessing a bond. So if you're really concerned about that aspect, I would think your legislation would be kind of geared towards addressing that aspect, as opposed to addressing things like not letting charitable organizations make bond. Does it really matter where the bond money came from? No. But it does if you want to make sure the bond companies are responsible for making the bonds, and you rob individual community groups and organizations out of the right to do things like make bonds for people that can't afford them for Mother's Day. If your problem is the people that are being released on bond, you need to write some legislation that addresses that problem and unshackle my hands so I can have a hearing and make those determinations. But when you get serious about the problem, we can have that conversation. You're not What you're going to do is give us this fake news about, oh my gosh, this bond reform, but it's a lie because it hasn't happened at the felony level. I hope that answers the question.
Wow. Well, it certainly answered a question for me. A whole lot of questions for me. That's pretty amazing, Judge Bell. And now we know why you are Judge Bell. We know why. And let's remember her, everyone. Absolutely. I see someone in the chat that said mic drop. Absolutely. Absolutely. I got a pen. I'm going to drop it for you. You did that, girl.
There you go.
Did that. Okay. Who did we miss? Mr. Wilkerson. You touched on it a little bit while you were speaking earlier about how constituents can work with you. Do you have anything to add, sir?
Absolutely. I agree with, first of all, with everyone else, all the other panelists and what they're saying as far as engaging the constituents. One of the things that's unique about Killeen, and we're a fairly small city of about 160,000 people, is that we have the advantage of being able to really get out and be active and engage with the community. And so one of the things that you'll see here that is very great for progressive movement is that our council now is starting to look like our city. And I don't only just mean that by race and gender, I also mean that by social economic group. And so that's one of the things that being able to tell a story and have shared interest with how you want to see your city grow is very important to people who are living here. So one of the things that I was able to do as far as the 9 months that I've been on so far is propose a crime solutions committee that is regional in nature. We just were approved with Bell County in Temple or Belton, I'm sorry, to come on board with us as well as our school district, KISD, to find unique solutions to get out in front of crime that don't involve policing it away. And one of the things that was very important to me when forming that is to have just as many seats at that table from the community as there are leaders in council or the school board or with Bell County Commissioner. So we were able to establish that, and we're excited to get that started and rolling as far as finding unique answers to questions that we have in our community to provide better alternatives to decision making for constituents here and give them options available. We have Texas A&M Central Texas, which is located here in Killeen as well. They jumped on board as well to do the research portion of our study to understand our unique situation even better. So I look forward to, within the next year or two, to really start getting some answers and some programs set up to where we can give youth, young adults, single parents, people from all different demographics within our city, alternatives to decisions that traditionally would have been, a bad decision. I already said earlier by the commissioner that, people just they're not criminals. Criminals are shaped by their environment. And so we want to make that environment the best we can here to alleviate that type of cause. We definitely don't want to police it away. But to sum it up, just being engaged with the community more and being from the community and of the community, that's very important to us. And I think you'll see great things come from Killeen in the near future.
Well, thank you so much, Councilman. I want to just say, just in case people on the call didn't know, I want to tip my hat to you for being city council in the city where Fort Hood is located. So that is no small feat. So I want to say thank you so much for that, and I will definitely keep you in my thoughts with regard to that matter. We have 10 minutes left. So what I would like to do right now, if it's okay with my co-host, are you all right?
Absolutely.
You all right? Okay. We got to check in. Is that I really would like to give each one of you an opportunity to do a wrap up. But I would like to ask, as a personal favor to me, is I would like you to include your thoughts on what's happening with voter rights. So we're going to start with Councilwoman Castillo, because she has, I love the way she presents. She just says what she needs to say, and that's what it is. So.
Yeah, absolutely right. what we need to continue to do is organize. And once we get someone into office, we need to continue doing that work on whatever issue we're passionate about. In addition to that, right, we need to hold our progressives accountable, folks who are progressive agenda and rhetoric. However, when it comes to the policymaking practice, aren't as progressive. So it's about organizing around those issues that we're passionate about, holding our leadership accountable, even those who are progressive, and ensuring that we are working towards that progressive policy that works for everyone. In addition to that, we also need to pay attention to our city or county lobbyists. For example, in San Antonio, we know that there's Senate Bill 15, which ties the hands of local governments. And that would make it hard to input mask mandates, to ensure that our workers are protected, to strengthen our non-discrimination ordinances. However, as a city, it's something that the city supported. I did not support that, so I went to Austin and let them know that I do not support that as a District 5 City Councilman of San Antonio. So it's about coalition building, working with our county commissioners to see where our work intersects and what we can do to support one another and to push forward that code policy, whether it's at the state level, local level, or at the county. It's about coalition building, and I look forward to pushing this work forward. And again, thanks to our revolution.
Absolutely, Mia. Mia, you want to take the next one?
Yes, Judge Bell.
I was hoping to leave her for last. We can have another mic drop. No,
I would rather have both of the bold stance go first. No, my challenge.
I think that what's happening right now, it disheartens me on so many levels, because I feel like the beginning of taking the rights for a lot of us came with changing the voter laws in order for it to deny us the right to vote, from the literacy test to everything that was put in place. And now we're getting to a place where places like Georgia, that never would have been blue ever in life, have elected 2 Democratic senators in the state of Georgia and helped flip a nation. Thanks, Stacey Abrams. But I think that is something that's disheartening, but it also something that's inspiring. It shows you that we have power. It shows you that our votes matter. It gives me something to say to every kid I hear, well, my vote doesn't count. If your vote didn't count, they wouldn't be fighting so hard to make sure you didn't get a chance to vote. So it's just motivation. And yes, I think that this is a knockdown moment. I feel a little knocked down, but I feel like you got to get up, and you got to get up over and over and over. And this time, if you brought 10 people with you, you bring 20 to make sure they understand you're going to have to come harder, because this is not a situation we're going to lie down and allow you to change the rules back to where they will be. We have our power, we have our vote, and we have our voice, and we are not shutting up for anything. You pissed us off, so you will get it louder. If you don't want to see angry black women, don't make me mad. And that will start off by not changing the voter rules, because I will be one of the ones out in the streets. Hey, you and your cousin, y'all come up with me, we will all vote today. And I think it is a knockdown moment, but remember, it came as a direct result of our win, and it's time to flex our power again.
Thank you so much, Judge Bell. I would not want to see you take your earrings off. I'm scared. I'm scared, girl.
Judge Bell, you hit on something that is near and dear to my heart. The myth of the angry black woman. And I think that there are some people who have taken that term and made it negative. Black women have a right to be angry, because there has been a systematic snatching of our men, separating our families, and then they want to know why black women are the most educated population in this country, because we had to be in order to survive. So I want to say thank you, and I want to start today in changing the narrative of the angry black woman, because an angry black woman is one who is motivated to make change for the right thing. Okay, I'm gonna stop preaching. Here we go. Who's next? Who do you choose, Mia?
Let's go with Commissioner Stout.
Well, again, I appreciate the opportunity to join you all today. Being a progressive is not always easy. Even in El Paso, our community, I think, overwhelmingly supported Bernie Sanders in the primary, and of course Biden in the general election. But we don't have a lot of, for some reason, we don't have a lot of progressive elected officials. So I sometimes find myself in a situation where I'm being attacked by my colleagues, and so I'm not giving up. None of us can give up. We have to keep up the fight. There's just so many things that we have that we have. And when I was talking earlier about needing more organizing in El Paso, we do have. I don't want to leave our revolution El Paso out. They do a great job. They're doing really great things. There's also other organizations, Community First and others that really do help. But when it comes to the voter suppression, I'm upset with what's going on. I think I'm probably the only one on the commissioner's court that actually pushed for a lot of the changes that we made. For example, going to vote centers, for the curbside voting for everybody. I wanted to send out mail-in ballot applications to everybody, not just the people over 65 and disabled. But we did that. I pushed for having extended hours at the polling places, and all of those things that this voter suppression bill is looking to preempt. And I've been in Austin testifying, not just this session against preemption, but since I've been in office. And it can be tough because you spend hours and hours at the Capitol. I think the last time I was there until 5 in the morning, and of course you only get 2 minutes to speak, and so it can be tough. But I know that all of you are strong, and being here in this space with you all is what gives me motivation and what keeps me strong to keep pushing, and just knowing that we're not alone, that we have a strong coalition, and we have to continue to fight. We have to continue to be that strong and lean on each other and support each other. And I can't thank you all enough for all that you do to make that happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stout. Last but not least.
Well, hey, I don't even know how to follow that. I mean, you saved the worst for last, it looks like. But I'm not the politician that you probably see in there. But I tell you this, it's really easy to be a progressive here, because progressive to me is being just using common sense to make a lot of common sense and facts to make decisions. And you spoke about being from Fort Hood. I'm a 27-year Army veteran, and most of the people here in Killeen, I spoke about how unique this area is. Not only are we, you almost got a perfect split, 30-30-30, black, Hispanic, and white. So, and we've been used to working with each other from the armed services a lot here from being a veteran community. But one of the things that's easy to do is just to use facts and good common sense to make good decisions. And as far as the voter suppression goes, one of the things that has been in the past that has actually damaged our ability to really get in front of this is because of how we used to look, maybe as early as 10 to 15 years ago, compared to how we look now. There is a sense of apathy. There is, I'll say that's lessening every day. But there was a sense of apathy that my vote never counted anyway. And even if you look at how we're divided up, we're gerrymandered very strongly here, and that's because they know that we'll use common sense to make good decisions as far as our vote is concerned. So they decided to say, okay, we'll just split you in half. And so that Democrat, that progressive vote doesn't count as much. But like I said before, because of how we look at our council, because of the leadership here in our city, even in the groups IBCC and the LULAC and the different organizations that are starting to stand in the gap and start educating people and actually activating them to come out and get involved with things. We're starting to hold accountable our representatives who are not, they don't really represent, at least in their views, they don't represent us. I'll give you an instance real quick, and I'm sure getting a little long-winded, but we had to reach out to our state representative, Dr. Brad Buckley, and ask him about the comments that were made by the lieutenant governor just yesterday. I mean, those type of things. This is the type of accountability that we are starting to see now in Killeen, and that's momentum building. And more people are getting involved. So again, getting involved, going down to the Capitol and speak and protest, and getting involved in groups like this, and speaking out about it. You're starting to see that more and more from Killeen, even though in the past we've kind of been a quiet community and been kind of docile and taken a lot of whatever the county or the state sent our way as far as how we would be able to perform our body politic. So I would say this: it's just getting started. I feel a lot of momentum in it, and there's a lot of people who are doing this just from the heart in Killeen. That's the wonderful thing that I see here, is that it's hard to beat that down. It's one thing to be a politician and just, if you just want the position, but people who actually want to see this place be a better place. I'm really enthusiastic about where we are right now and where we're going in the future. So just keep us keep us on your speed dial as far as anything is concerned. When things are going on, don't forget, we are a small city, but we have a lot of energy, and we do have the largest military post here in Killeen. Sorry about that, Commissioner. But so keep that in mind when you start thinking about things that want to go forward in a progressive way. We should be at the top of the list. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, City Councilman Wilkerson. I think you definitely define the difference between a politician and a public servant. So thank you so much. This will bring our panel to a close. And we want to thank everyone for coming. In the chat, I have posted our local chapters registration meeting link. So if you'd like to join or come to see what happens in Brazoria, Fort Bend County chapter, you are perfectly welcome to do so. I also posted directly our donation link. So if you like what you hear, you think I represented the chapter well, please, if you have a few extra coins, go ahead on and donate that to us. Mia?
And the same thing goes for everywhere else, from Harris to South Texas, to North Texas, to Central Texas, even El Paso. Please feel free to click on those mobilize links and join us for our regional meetings. Again, thank you so much to our panelists. Councilman Wilkerson, thank you ever so much for your service and for your sacrifice. And I believe this we'll pass it over to Carla. Carla.
Thank you, Mia. And thank you, everyone, for being on the call today. Thank you to all of our hosts. Thank you to all of our panelists.